Good morning. Today is Sunday, December 21st, 2025, and this is the weekly Bitcoin price forecast. Looking at where Bitcoin went in the last week and where it could potentially go in the future. So this is the end of December. Very quiet month as we can see. Really just Bitcoin bounced up and down. Really just stayed on support for the entire month. There were some attempts to go higher, but those were all kind of squashed down. There were some attempts to go lower, down to 83, but I think you found some type of equilibrium point here. I talked about 86,000 being like a stopping point. It's a stopping point, or at least a temporary pause. We'll get down to lower time frames. I'll show you why I still think this is somewhat bearish and not like these dips that we've had here. It's just different. And so we'll see. We'll see how that ends up playing out. But for right now, I mean, I think you've seen the kind of temporary high at this point, all the way from 16,000 at the bottom to 126,000. So that's a 100,000 point swing if you caught that in the bottom. So I mean, incredible. It wasn't as explosive as I thought it would be coming into this about, I don't know, let's say 2.5 years ago. But I mean, overall, 631% in that span is still phenomenal. It's phenomenal, and you're not really seeing those type of returns anywhere else. And I will say too that this was a rather quiet 2.5 years in terms of like the finances, in terms of liquidity. There wasn't near as much volatility as there has been historically. So with that being said, this was still a great run. I mean, from here in 2023, you had an late 2023, early 2024 run. You had another run. This is around election time at this point. You had this dip starting the year off, and then had a run up into about July, and then it's been pretty much a fall off since then. So I think that has overall tracked the market, but it has not. It's exceeded it. It has been similar in other markets, but this has really gone above and beyond. Since 2023, since the start of 2023, exactly about 3 years ago, that initial January candle really just led to a huge wave. So let's look at the weekly chart. There's really not too much to talk about with Bitcoin's movement this week. It's going to be just kind of doji. So I'm really starting to talk about more what's to come in the next year. So at this point, we see here there's no real support in the bottom here. So like there's this level of support right here. Let me go ahead and turn the drawings on. That is a lot. That's a lot of stuff, but it's all accurate though. At this point, it can go two directions, right? So Bitcoin can either maybe retest 97 or 100, but if it does that, I definitely see it coming down lower to 75, if not somewhere in the 66 range. So this is a pretty solid window right here, to where I don't think the price would really go too much below that. Even if it does come down to this level, that would shake a lot of people out for sure. But I think we do need that to go higher. There was a tap here, a run up, another tap, which I think it could end up going a little bit lower. Like I said, to about 65 or 70, 65 to 75, somewhere in that range. I think you'll see some type of real pause before you see another turnaround going back up to the 123s. And that's just a flush out. That's the reality of what it is. So, again, unless there's some broader market shock, I just think that this is probably a safe space at this point to start accumulating again, because at that point the risk is pretty much mitigated. Even if it does go down to 56,000, it's not as devastating as if it were to drop from 87 to 56. So I think that would be my type of buying back in area is somewhere around 65 to 75. And right now I absolutely am bearish. And for the foreseeable future until it turns around, but we'll see what that ends up looking like. I could probably draw a regression channel here from this point to this point. And we see the price is pretty much kind of stayed in there on the daily chart. And now what I'm seeing is it's just kind of come back down to the other side of this. So, I mean, you're facing some real heavy support. I'm sorry. Yeah, real heavy resistance. Real heavy resistance here at this point. To where I think that we'll probably end up seeing some type of tape, because I don't see a whole bunch of catalysts that are pushing it to the upside now. But now the fact that we've kind of gone on this way makes me believe that we're probably going to break down one more time. before seeing some type of upward swing. Okay, what else is there to talk about? Again, a lot of there's a lot of resistance above, and then the support ends up being right here. So we could trade between this band for quite some time, and then finally break out. I don't know what that'll look like going into the year, but I do think that we could, kind of see some type of bounce at this point, or at least, like I said, some type of inward channel. But we'll see how that ends up looking. Right now, again, I think one more dump before we go to the upside. 4 hour chart, not too much need to go down there because it's really just been ranging. Nothing fantastic, but hey, it's the end of the year. It's quiet on all fronts. Anyone who's working, they know that pretty much all work comes to a stop at least probably the second week of December, and then people just ride out the rest of the year. So that's what we're seeing here too. Let's look at what's going on, Forex Factory and whatnot. This was last week. I'm gonna fast forward to this week, this upcoming week. That's not what I wanted to do. Oh shit. My internet is really slow. I don't know what the deal is. Okay, here we go. Really, what I was showing is like there's not really anything coming up. Nothing coming up at this point. You got a couple of speeches, then you got Christmas right here. Right after that, you got New Year. So I would say the rest of the year is pretty much cooked for trading and whatnot. Just buy and hold at this point. I would say just buy and hold somewhere around that, like I said, 75 to 65 range. But realistically, looking at this chart, looking at the news coming up, there's not really anything. We're at the end of the year. We probably won't end up seeing anything until probably at least Monday the 5th. And just going from there. So, like I said, it's been an overall good year. Bitcoin has really become institutionalized at this point. That's not what I want to see. One thing I was looking at was just basically what has been the impact of all this buying in Bitcoin that we have seen over the last year. We see from 2020 ETFs and public companies and exchanges holding Bitcoin. At this point, like they've increased and they're only going to keep increasing. You're going to see more public companies and ETFs coming into the space. Exchanges will probably, you'll still probably keep a similar amount of exchanges. So I mean, the buying maybe for both of them it picks up. But if that is the case, you end up with a situation to where now Bitcoin's price just ends up going parabolic because this is still a supply and demand thing for sure. Who has the demand for it, and what's the supply looking like? So we know that supply is it's capped. It's capped at 21 million, and it's decreasing every roughly 4 years at this point. That's the halving period. And at the same time, you have ETFs and public companies, individuals and whatnot. It's really more ETFs and public companies at this point. It's not a retail game anymore, but it has been institutionalized. So I think it is going to move in the way that other large institutional assets do because that's the main play. So we'll see how that looks. We will see how that ends up looking like, but I think the supply and demand dynamics are going to start getting interesting in the next couple of years. Speaking of ETFs, so I mean, this isn't really the public companies aspect of it, but I mean, just looking at the total net inflow, 649 Bitcoin. I guess that's over the last, I don't know if that's over the last year or basically since the inception, but that's still a lot. That's quite a bit. Daily net inflow, they're chilling about, what's that, almost 2,000 Bitcoin. Daily trading volume, 4.91 billion. So, I mean, this is huge. This is absolutely huge, the way that this is being played. So, I mean, this is all going to be what a lot of people use moving forward to get exposure to Bitcoin. And then total net assets is 120 billion. So, I mean, yeah, 120 billion. So that's huge just for Bitcoin. Looking at the inflow over time, you see that it was primarily buying all the way through 2024 and even into, this is 2025 here. A lot of buying in 2024. You start to see some selling in 2025, but again, the whole market kind of came down at this point. The rest of 2025 was pretty much buying, and then ever since October, it's just been pretty much all sell pressure. And we see that reflected in the price. So it's been all sell pressure from the ETFs and whatnot, like a whole bunch of selling. And I mean, I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg at this point, but we do see that as they start selling, like the price goes down steeper and steeper. This was into like leading up to Thanksgiving, actually. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that ends up kind of turning around. It does look like they've slowed down, but also this is kind of December and the end of the year too. But there has been somewhat of an abatement of the selling. So IBIT, that's BlackRock, being the largest holder of Bitcoin at 770,000 Bitcoin, so almost a million. And then that's how much they're holding. This is Fidelity with 200,000 Bitcoin. Grayscale with 156,000, and then these are just some of the smaller ones at this point, like Arcus, Kathy Wood with 37,000 Bitcoin. Pricing, yeah, they're doing crazy volume. So like 3.3 billion, 500 million, so on and so forth, 300 million per day, or maybe that's like total volume. 1 billion. Who is the least amount of shares? Yeah, so that's interesting. It's kind of interesting to see. Market cap. So yeah, I'm just kind of looking at these stats, but it's been really interesting to see what these ETFs have been able to accumulate over time. So I would say really this is an institutional game at this point for Bitcoin. And actually, let me see what there was some. This is what I'm looking for. I was looking at an infographic earlier, and it was just basically seeing like who has been absorbing Bitcoin lately. So if we're taking a look at this, average daily Bitcoin flow dynamics in 2025. This came out in August, so it's been a little while, but it still pretty much holds true. Like you have a lot of outflow from individuals. So there are people selling, whether that be the small buyers or big buyers. Overall, the net outflow has been 300,000. And at that same time, like there's Bitcoin every day, 450 Bitcoin appears. So that's going into the outflow, which is kind of adding more supply to it. Eventually, this dries up. And I think this is going to keep increasing. So individuals are going to be selling their Bitcoin. Maybe they've been in it for a long time, or maybe they're just I don't know. Maybe these are just small wallets who are doing whatever. But overall, like there's been a shift from the individual to the institution. So we see the net inflows of Bitcoin, people buying Bitcoin. You have your treasury companies, you have your conventional businesses. This could be your dry cleaners, mom and pop's business, whatever it is. Funds and ETFs. So again, this is like Bitcoin. This is the Bitcoin ETF. So you have things like entities like BlackRock and Fidelity, the ones that we just looked at, and a ton of different hedge funds. Obviously, getting exposure to crypto and space. And then you just have other governments and whatnot. So, I mean, it's good to see. It's definitely good to see. And then you also have lots of Bitcoin too. So this is more so this is more so the demand. This is where the demand is at right now, because it is outpacing or at least evenly matched with the individuals who are selling. So eventually that shifts because there's a lot less Bitcoin over here, and there's just more and more that's being bought every day. The demand is increasing. So it's just gonna be good as time goes by. So, is there anything else to talk about? I think I talked about it all. This is actually gonna be the last one that I do, at least in the weekly series. But it's been a pleasure to actually just look at Bitcoin from week to week. I want my Sundays back, and I'm gonna get my Sundays back. So I'll be putting out another video maybe in about a week, just looking at what I'm gonna look at over the next year or two, and just seeing how that ends up playing out. So, again, this has been Chris Talks Crypto. Check out their crypto-based resources on christalkscrypto.com, and I will see y'all on the moon. Take care. Bye-bye.